society is how it treats its women and girls. In the world. The measure of any society is how it treats its women and girls. The smart, powerful, creative, accomplished young women. I'm here because of you. I'm here because girls like you inspire me.
Buckle up, buttercups. Buckle up, buttercups. Okay, so that didn't work out. I don't know why, Frank. But yeah, buckle up. So here we go. I don't know what the hell. Okay, now here, we'll put that on. I was trying an experiment that's not working out too well, so I'm going to stop the experiment. We just started our YouTube channel last night, so I was trying to experiment with it, and it didn't work. So here we go. we're hiding the kids, we're hiding the wives. But, there are some video clips on the YouTube channel, so go and give that a watch when you have a minute. Donna?
Yes. Okay, so today we're going to talk about trad wives. We're also going to check in with Marley from the Dump Duke movement, who is going to tell us where they are in their effort to change Duke change Pinellas County, St. Pete from a Duke-run utility to a municipal-run utility. In other words, the city is looking to renegotiate or take over the Duke contract because every 30 years, I've been covering this continuously because I'm fascinated by it. I've been going to the city council meetings, I've been going to their events, and looking to see if citizens who are constantly complaining about this issue have the spirit to join the Dump Duke movement, but we'll come back to that. But first, I want to introduce you to what some of you, because of our audience, this is an internet social media based movement called the traditional wife, or in social media nomenclature is the trad wife. So we're going to delve into the pastel-filled rabbit hole of social media's latest obsession. I stay up at night, 2:00 in the morning, and write this stuff. Think prairie dresses. You guys remember the strawberry milkmaid dress, the cottage core? That's where this is coming from. If that touched you, but you didn't hear about trad wives, sourdough starters, they're selling those on Facebook Marketplace.
That's crazy.
Yes. 6-pack husbands and 7 kids named after herbs. Can you imagine yourself having a kid named Thyme or Cardamom? Leading the charge is none other than Ballerina Farm. Google that, okay? A former Miss Utah turned barefoot goddess of domesticity. She has a cult-like following and a husband with Olympic-level jawline credentials. But let's not be fooled by the butter churn and ballet slippers. This is Victorian cosplay. I said that through clenched teeth, if you could hear it. For the algorithm age. An aesthetic that romanticizes subservience and sells it as empowerment. Betty Friedan called it out in The Feminine Mystique in 1963, before most of the folks who are calling themselves trad wives were born. And this is why Shahid Bolden says they want you to start over at every generation so that you repeat the mistakes of your ancestors. How the ideal real woman, that was the feminine mystique, is less about fulfillment and more about containment. A gilded cage with a matching apron. So why are millions of women idolizing a life that looks suspiciously like 1890 with Wi-Fi? And who benefits when femininity is repackaged as performance art is the question on the table. So we're going to unpack the fantasy, the followers, and the feminism. Buckle up. It's about to get frothy in here. And the other thing that I wanted to bring to you for, because we're going to talk about Nara Smith, we're going to name some of the people who are leading this, is when I was doing the research for this, I read something that said capacities are needs. I'm going to say it again. Capacities are needs. And if you do not utilize them, you can become depressed or even physically ill. Your unused capacities, you have them for a reason. Your unused capacities will mold and ferment, and they will cause you existential, maybe even physical pain.
Ooh.
All right. Let's go to Marley and then we'll come back. I just wanted you guys to be sitting on the edge of your seats.
Yes. So, Marley, welcome.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. So, like Donna said, my name is Marley, and I'm here on behalf of the Dump Duke campaign. And before last year, I actually didn't think much about electricity, even though it's something we all rely on every single day. And I especially didn't think there was room in these conversations for me as someone that went to community college and does not have a background in this. So, even if I didn't like how our money was being used, like funding private jets or the never ending advertising, I paid my bill each month and I moved on because that's what we have to do. But I was actually pretty shocked to find out it's not like that everywhere. And there are more than 30 cities in Florida, including Jacksonville, Orlando, and Lakeland, that are served by publicly owned electric utilities that not only give residents a meaningful role in how their power is managed, but all three of those examples actually pay 30 to 40% less than we do. And one of the primary differences is that public utilities operate on a not-for-profit basis. And this distinction has highlighted a long-standing divide in the power industry between public accountability versus private financial gains. But still, when in 1996, when St. Pete signed the last franchise agreement with Duke Energy, there wasn't even really a question of exploring alternative options. And nearly 30 years later, we're all suffering because of it while we pay some of the highest power bills in Florida. And some states do limit the chance to take control of these utilities to the end of the franchise agreement. But St. Pete is actually in a really strong position as our contract expires in 2026. And for over a century, public utility law has upheld the community's right to reclaim control at the end of these agreements. So this moment presents like a really historic opportunity for us. And Clearwater leaders took a bold first step last year by approving a study to explore breaking free from Duke's monopoly, a move that really signaled their commitment to energy independence.
Okay.
So we've been calling on St. Pete officials to show the same courage and vision, even knowing full well that Duke's not going to surrender without a fight. And what gives these investor-owned utilities so much power isn't just their size, it's the dark money operating behind the scenes that
Okay.
fuels a lot of the victories that they've secured across the country.
Okay. I want to
Even-
jump in here and ask a
Oh, yeah.
question. Okay. I want to drill down into the specific benefits of a municipal run utility as you guys understand it. So if what happens that's not happening now, that happens when if you achieve your goal of a municipal run utility.
It's the public input and the local control and the transparency, which all kind of go hand in hand.
Okay. And so people are looking for their bills to be lowered, right? The entire economy is in a tailspin. Every day, the news cycle is showing us, more indicators that we're not going the right way. Consequently, folks are looking for relief from these necessary bills that they have, their housing, their utility bills. What would be the impact? This is the question that I get over and over again. What is going to be the impact of a municipal run utility on their pocketbooks, the public?
And so to truly know that, we would need to do a feasibility study, which is
Okay.
why that's our first thing we're pushing for, is because that really answers the question.
Okay.
Is it feasible? How much is it going to cost? And where is that money going to come from? Those will answer those questions more confidently.
Okay.
But just looking at the 30 examples in Florida, every single one of them has lower rates than what we're paying right now. And it really cuts out a lot of this excess waste that we see these investor-owned utilities spending, whether that be through the private jets, the advertising, the executive pay, the paid focus groups that they've been doing. There's a lot of these things that aren't relevant to our electrical utilities or
Okay.
anything like that. And they are more so just trying to maintain their monopoly with
Okay.
campaign
So,
donations.
so my next question is on the average. So I heard you say most of these folks are getting lower bills that have municipal run utilities. That's where my intrigue is, right? That's my personal engagement interest rate. On the average, what is the change in the resident's bill when they go municipal?
Yeah, so if we're just looking at like nearby examples, like I said, Orlando, Lakeland, they both
Mhm.
pay 30 to 40% less than we do each month. So it can be pretty sizable.
Okay. All right. And then my other question is, I have been going to the events. Last week, everybody got up and they said, "Hey, you know what? You guys need to you guys need to do this. This is happening to me. I've got this bill. This is my problem. I want this to stop. I think that we should get rid of Duke." And then at the end, just as I was starting to glaze over, this guy got up and he was like, "Yeah, I don't know if this is right. I must be the guy who didn't get the memo." And so he complained about, and some people talked about water bills that have kind of gone off the rails in St. Pete. We've talked about this before. Can you tell me a little bit about how the city is looking at those issues, and why businesses are hesitant to invest in St. Pete? That's kind of a indirect correlation, but I'd like to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, if businesses are hesitant to invest right now with Duke, I don't think that would change anything if we didn't have Duke. But I do see why businesses would stick together on those interests. Obviously, that is all
Yeah,
following the money.
yeah.
But with the water bills, it's a really unique difference that when you have a problem with your water bill, not only can you go to the city and directly complain and be heard by not only the full council, but the journalists in the room. It's broadcast live. So you have that direct microphone to get in someone's ear that can actually make a difference. But they also have a utility review commission where you can apply to have your bill reviewed by people that have worked within the city and independent citizens that are on the board to have it reviewed and make sure that it's correct. And if necessary, make the adjustments where needed, which with a company like Duke, they do not have anything like that. I can't call the CEO of Duke and have my voice heard or my input listened to. And I definitely can't call someone to say, I think my bill is too high. It's not going to get me anywhere.
Okay, Karen in Dunedin says, "Does the city hire their own linemen? How does it work in a power outage?" I know these are very specific questions that the feasibility study would have to answer, but what is your take on that?
Yeah, so the hiring part, that would be more through the feasibility study. But after a hurricane, which is a huge question we've had, most of those linemen that come to restore service, they are coming because of mutual aid agreements with other utilities and not necessarily even from Duke anyway, even though we do pay for it. But in cities with public power, they often are through the American Public Power Association's mutual aid network, which is made of more than 2,000 organizations. And if you combine that with the fact that local utilities linemen live much closer to the city, if not in it, and would have a much smaller grid to be responsible for, it's easy to see why public utilities often actually restore power just as fast, if not faster, than the investor-owned counterparts.
Okay, so I really like the idea of a lower bill. And I like the idea that in a time when a lot of us are just inundated with every possible issue that you can imagine, from civil rights to economy to we're taking hits in education. I like the idea that someone has the presence of mind to stand up and say, we'd like to see this not be this way. It doesn't have to be this way. So I appreciate your efforts on that. My last question for you is the feasibility study. Where's your group and Councilman Floyd, Councilman Richie Floyd? I think he is District 5. Is that correct?
District 8.
District 8. I deal with a lot of CDs and stuff, electoral stuff. So tell me where he is in marshaling this feasibility study.
Yes, we made sure to approach the city with plenty of lead time. Our contract is up in 2026, near like August, October. So we have plenty of time to commission a study still. And actually, today there will be a Health, Energy, Resiliency, and Sustainability Committee meeting at the St. Pete City Hall, where they will be hearing from the American Public Power Association and kind of going into more details about the feasibility study to really start mapping where we're going to go with that.
Okay, that is wonderful.
Where
Mhm.
is that meeting open to the public, Marley?
It is, and it'll be at City Hall, but it'll also be on the St. Pete website.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and so is there anything else you'd like to tell our viewers before you take off, Marley?
Yeah, there's obviously a lot more to this than I can get out in a few minutes. So if you're curious and you want to learn more about this once in a generation opportunity, visit our website and sign the petition calling for a feasibility study for public power at dumpdukestpete.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And we look forward to having you back as we move forward with this movement. We appreciate
Awesome.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marley.
Okay, bye-bye. All right. So that you guys, when stuff is going on and we bring you into it and we show it to you, that's an opportunity. We complain a lot, but I mean, we as a people, right? We
Yes.
complain a lot about a great number of things. And when folks have an opportunity, they don't stand up and then they blame the wrong people and the thing gets out of hand. So if that's all I got to say. I'm going to put a pin in that. You guys know what to do. All right.
You're listening to Surly Voices on WMNF Tampa 88.5. You can give us a call at 813-239-9663, or you can email to dj@wmnf.org. All right.
All right. We've got Nadia.
OG Surly Voice Nadia in the wilds of Dallas.
So I want to prep Nadia to talk about Nara Smith. Like, she is the chief trad wife. She has millions of viewers, and she began posting in late 2023. This went really fast. They say that that grew up, quickly. Between 2023 and 2024, Nara Smith started posting these soft-spoken cooking videos. She has a very distinctive voice. I'm going to make lasagna from scratch today. I watched one Nara Smith video where she had movie night and she made pretzel bites, licorice, and I think chewing gum from scratch for movie night.
Wow.
And I blocked her.
Yeah.
And I took a screenshot of, you have blocked Nara Smith, just so that I could prove my feminist cred to people that ask me about this. And when we started talking about this in our group chat, I sent you guys that screenshot, didn't I?
Yep.
Okay. So her recreation of everyday foods like grilled cheese, cereal, she makes cereal, garnered massive views. One sandwich video hit 25 million views.
Wow.
He has amassed over 9 million TikTok and 4 million Instagram followers. Now, her content is aligned visually with the trad wife subculture, and she's distanced herself from claiming the label. Convenient, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like white feminism to me. Yes, I get by, but I don't talk about it. We don't talk about it. She shares the glimpses of life as a personal choice and not a statement on gender roles. So yeah, that's convenient because she depoliticizes for optimal effect and income. Okay.
You trap more flies that way.
Now she's married to Lucky Blue Smith, and he is a model as well. They met through IMG in Milan, and they married in February 2020. They have 3 children. Y'all ready for these names? Rumble Honey, Slim Easy, and Whimsy Lou.
Good Lord.
That's when you have money, you can name your kids anything,
Yeah.
right? Like Apple.
Can you imagine sending your kid to school like that?
Frank Zappa did it.
Well,
But
sure.
she has one on the way, guys.
She
Yeah.
always has one on the way.
Yeah.
Yep.
She started having babies in 2020. It's 2025. That's the child number 4. So they're expecting a 4th child. They just announced that in June. And they say that she perpetuates this nostalgic gender roles. Now, I want to stop there because we're going to Nadia, because Nadia's got all the tea on this. that in times of economic uncertainty, it is said that gender roles become more pronounced. So I also think that this is being enhanced and accelerated by the trans lives movement and trans visibility. People are sinking back into tradition as a way to shield themselves from the inevitable social evolution. Now, that's just all in my head, y'all. I'm not reading anything, right? This is what I do. So stay with me. Now, back to the notes. She has been recognized by People magazine as the fourth most influential creator of the year, and Forbes ranked her among its top creators. She has eczema and lupus, and she says that preparing meals from scratch help her manage her health. I can tell you, as a person with a lot of allergies and someone who wants to have an immune, my body wants to do immune deficiency stuff. It wants to do it, right? Autoimmune stuff. That eating in my house and knowing what I'm eating does help immensely. When I eat out,
Yes.
I have problems, instantaneous. So I want to ride with Nara on that one point, which is probably the only place we'll converge ideologically. Okay. Now, she has emerged from her modeling background, and Maria's going to come in later. She's going to talk about how Nara stole her persona. Shocking, right? Stole her persona from a Black woman. Choked on that.
Oh,
one,
that's
okay?
never happened before.
And so she, at first glance, she's a picture perfect trad wife far type. She's, created a playful complexity. She's got the recipe whisper, the style icon, domestic myth buster, and she's sparked fascination and debate. And that is where I'll stop. Nadia.
Nadia, it's
I
your
think you're on
turn.
mute or something.
Yeah, she is on mute.
Okay, so we'll jump
Yeah.
over to, go ahead.
Nadia is on mute.
Okay. So we'll jump over to Maria and tell us about how she ripped off the original influencer of her whisper recipe style.
So she's originally from South Africa, right?
Yes. Mhm.
And
Oh,
the woman who she ripped off. So Nadia is, I'm sorry, not Nadia.
Not Nara.
Nara. She is biracial,
Mm-hmm.
South African. And we have to all admit that colorism is a thing,
Yeah,
and
it's
it
crazy.
exists,
Mhm.
and it is very prevalent in South Africa. The person that she ripped off from all of her recipes is a very dark-skinned Black woman, South African woman, right? That's where all of that comes from. But one of the things that I thought was interesting, Donna, when you were talking,
Mhm.
is the inauthenticity of
Mm.
all of this.
Yes.
Um, this is all a persona that, like, even with the recipes and the stealing of the recipes and being something that she actually is not authentically, there are health issues related to that, right? Like
Mhm.
autoimmune diseases, like you're talking about, like lupus, are an immune response,
Mhm.
right? That
Mhm.
are perpetuated by stress, right?
Right.
And I just think that there's just like an interesting correlation there with who she wants to be and who, like, this society or this whatever this trend is that she wants to fall into. I find fascinating, right?
Yes.
But yeah, the person that she stole her her domesticity from is a dark-skinned Black South African woman that
this
she
all reminds me of
totally
that.
ripped
Yeah,
off from without giving any credit to. But I'm
this
sorry, Liz, go on.
this all reminds me of the movie Imitation of Life.
Mhm.
Have you seen?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
You know what it also reminds me of? The movie Stepford Wives.
Ah,
Yes.
yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'll come back later after Nadia and talk about feminine mystique and the whole Stepford wife energy of this.
Hi,
I was having
Nadia.
technical difficulties. I'm sorry.
I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. I was saying that I can talk about the trad wife movement because I used to be one.
Oh, yeah. And you're our resident millennial.
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
that's true.
Mhm.
Um, so back to what Maria mentioned something earlier about it being unrealistic. And I was, um, of course, I know who Ballerina Farms and Nora Smith, and I've been kind of following this for a while,
Mhm.
looking from afar. But Maria mentioned something about being unrealistic. I noticed something if you watch these types of trad wife, content videos, they show them, baking and gardening, all these things, but nobody's doing laundry or scrubbing toilets, sweeping, mopping.
Mhm.
um, and it's kind of that's like, and I love it. Nora Smith makes Cheez-Its from scratch, right? But like, why we're it's not it's unrealistic, as she said. It really is. And I like people need to take like a deeper dive into it. And something that occurred to me this morning, actually, like I was thinking, the research about this show. Why don't you ever see a trad wife in their 40s?
Mm.
Why are all these young women early 30s and mid to late 20s?
Well, that's a good question. I have many hypothetical
With,
answers.
with a violent skin reaction, by the way.
So we can go back to that in a second, but it's being so romanticized. And it on the surface, right? It sounds so nice. You stay at home and there's nothing, people would say like, feminism is about choice, right? Okay.
Yes.
That's white feminism. Okay. True feminism is about freeing everybody, right?
Mhm.
So this is so like there's such a disconnect.
Mhm.
It if I'm sorry, I'm gonna gather my words here. Get a little angry when we talk about this.
Yeah.
Because it romanticizes like from times from let's say 1950 1960, but and it's gone even to other things like even the what is it called, like their rich money aesthetic,
Mhm.
right? And it like the way that we dress, it's great to like if you'd like to dress that way, but it's not realistic, right?
Mhm.
It's gone into like it's like the what is the crunchy to alt-right pipeline.
Yes.
So we start with like home baking and gardening, and all of a sudden, we don't have a right to have a credit card anymore.
Right. Well,
Uh,
and yeah, exactly. Sorry.
I would really suggest if we have young listeners to really like do a deep dive. And on the surface, it sounds excellent, right? But it's unrealistic. Considering, as Donna mentioned earlier, our economical situation, I believe like median economy just to as a single person in this country is like $85,000 a year as a single person to live comfortably, right? So imagine if you added a partner and a child.
Mhm.
And I've even seen like stay-at-home girlfriend content.
Well, now, all right, I want to make a distinction between stay-at-home moms and trad wives because yes.
Yes. Okay. So, and I'm sure everybody here would agree with me. There's nothing wrong with being a stay-at-home mom. I was a stay-at-home mom, but I also happened to be, didn't know I was a
Trad
trad
wife.
wife. Didn't know it at the time.
You
Didn't know it.
invented it and didn't even know. Yeah.
Didn't know it. So being a stay-at-home mom is a very admirable, it's very thankless, right?
Mhm.
Especially if I, I don't think anybody in this, on the show would disagree in saying like that's a very admirable, very difficult job. What's the differentiation between being a trad wife and just a stay-at-home mom is the traditional gender roles. My husband works and I take care of everything else, basically, which it doesn't really make sense because even if he wasn't married to you, he would still have to work. Yes.
You would
Just
think.
you would think.
Mhm. Mhm.
um, so thank you for that, Liz. So people don't think that we're trashing stay
Oh
at home
boy,
moms.
yeah.
Now, that
Yeah.
distinction had to be made.
Yes. But I think why we're calling it unrealistic and regressive is because okay, let's say it works out temporary, and why don't we see women trad wives in their late 30s and 40s? Well, because on reality, you know, when you're 25, everything's like wonderful. What could possibly go wrong, right?
Right.
Yes.
Like,
The
this is
idealism.
wonderful.
Hmm.
This is wonderful. Oh my gosh, you know, like I stay at home and I take care of my 2.5 children, and I have my white picket fence and my little garden, and I make cheeses from scratch. And what could possibly go wrong? Until, let's say, let's leave, you know, the marital issues aside. What if something happens to your husband health-wise?
Right.
He gets sick.
Yeah.
He gets some sort of, you know, life-changing diagnosis. What do you do then?
Sell your sourdough starters on eBay.
Um, it's
But
just
you're not allowed to have your own bank account, right?
Right.
Like
yeah,
if
exactly.
we're going back to the 50s and 60s, women weren't allowed to have their own bank account. They weren't
Right.
allowed to have their own credit card. And they stayed in sometimes they stayed in abusive relationships because they had no choice, right?
Yeah.
They're stuck. There was no alimony, right? There was no like my dad was in grad school when I was a kid, and I remember a bunch of his friends going to dental school or medical school or whatever, going to law school, and the wife put them through graduate school. And then when they were finished, they found a girlfriend, divorced the wife, and the wife was left with the children and nothing to start from scratch after she had spent, like, worked, earned money to support the family and to pay the tuition to get them through their professional training. She's left with nothing, right? That's the
Right.
trad wife.
Hmm.
That's the dark side of the trad wife that we're not talking about.
Well, not
Well,
only that, getting back to why they're all young. I mean, that's the image of fertility and estrogen pouring out of your pores and
Hmm.
stuff. And the older they get, you know, yeah, you're a great trad wife until you're about 40, and then it's time for a new one. Yeah, that's where I see some of that going too.
I also see it as when you're young, you know, starting from middle school, like who's the pretty girl, who's the cheerleader.
Mm,
It's all about form. As you grow older, it becomes less about form. Those estrogen levels start going down, then you start becoming more focused on your function.
right.
Right? What happens when you
What's
have no skills, no education, and you've spent the last 20 years rooted in unpaid labor, isolation, and performance? Right?
exactly.
This is Victorian realness with an aura light.
And not only all that, but you're required to submit to your husband. In other words, the husband leads the whole show.
You know, I find that when I think about, I was fascinated by the story of Hannah Nealman. She's got 8 kids. She's got homemade bread. She's churning butter at dawn. She got a husband that looks like a Disney prince, right? You know, and she looks like the trad wife. She's been dubbed the queen of the trad wives. You know, but the problem is that she does an interview. Her husband's interrupting her. Her husband has specifically requested that she have no assistance with childcare.
Oh wow.
8 kids, they are 100% hers 100% of the time. Now, I had one kid at a time because I had them 10 years apart because I had to be coached. You know, think of someone in Lamar's class being told to breathe. This was people trying to get me to have a kid, right? And I was like, I can't do it again. I was hyperventilating. I jumped out of the car and ran across the thing. You know, I wanted to have an abortion. My husband was like, well, you know, your mom, she had her uterus removed at 29. You might not have another opportunity. And then I thought, you know, FOMO, what if I want to have a kid? That was the thing. Not the idea of actually having the kid, but the idea that I would want one at some point and wouldn't be able to have it.
Mhm.
So I went ahead and had my son. All I can say about that is he was expensive. And
He's still expensive.
it is wild, right? Seeing yourself moving around outside your body. But my concern is that we had this, and you know how Frieden, how she wrote the feminine mystique. So she went to some type of event, and she was asking the women there, "How are you?" And in turn, in different words, each of those women was like, "I don't even know," right? Like, I love my husband, I love my kids, but it's not working. And for someone to say this is not the same as that era, when you are constantly shown the the image of men achieving great things, winning Nobel prizes and Pulitzer prizes, and you see them ascending to the highest office in the land. We watch Barack Obama. He was kind of a kept husband. When he was doing the state rep thing and moving through the ranks as an elected official, it was Michelle Obama's $400,000 salary as a hospital administrator that held him until he became the president. And now, when everyone is looking for him to, do stuff and be out there as a former president, say something. He's like, man, I'm in such a deep hole with my wife that I will never dig out of this. And if I start going to stuff and she's side eyeing me, you saw that he was at the thing by himself.
Oh,
It's
yes.
like, bro, it's not happening. That's what a modern woman looks like. And people say, well, traditional gender roles. This is what I got to say about traditional gender roles.
Yeah, but who's tradition too?
As the world
Exactly.
changes, the way we exist as humans change. We evolve. It is unfair for one gender to have the way they show up in the world and the way they function in the world evolve, while women have to stay in the dark ages. We're not asking for that in any other way. Perhaps we'd like for the forest to stay lush, but other than that, everyone gets to come forward in time, except women.
Yeah.
Let's talk about why, like realistically, why
Yes.
the trad, like why it's unrealistic, right? Besides,
Okay.
like they don't show the scrubbing the toilets. Show me a marriage, okay, where someone, let's say someone who's been married 50 years, and show me a woman who can't say that there's been no infidelity, that there's been no financial abuse,
Sigh.
always perpetuated by, right? And at the end of that, 40, 50-year marriage, you're just going to find a woman who can tell you how much she had to sacrifice.
Can I go deep on that and talk about
Yes.
my mom who
Yes.
passed away last year? We're gonna really get here.
I'm going to talk about my grandma too, because that's going to be, yeah.
Now, my mother was a beautiful, physically beautiful woman, right? She was during the time that when she was young, she had some racial ambiguity, and that made her very appealing to men of that era. Well, she married my dad at 19 in Columbia, South Carolina, on the base. He was a young soldier. And for 53 years, my mother, this feels very dark and heavy to me. My mother she did everything that a woman could do to make a man be in love with her. And my dad had 3 children. There's my brother, me, my sister is the oldest. I'm the middle child. And I got an axe to grind on that one, but that's another show.
All middle children
Yes.
do. Yes.
And then my
Middle child.
okay, you know what I'm saying? Come on. So my brother is the baby. My dad has 3 children that he left behind that are younger than my brother. And my parents were married for 53 years. He had those children inside of the marriage, and he paid for them. And they got things we didn't get as a consequence of the money going out. It actually changed our lifestyle, right? When you're paying for 3 children,
Right.
and then you work at the post office, they're going to find your check. They're going to garnish it. So my mother was depressed, and she was not fat, but she thought she was. And had she had money, she would have been one of those women that was constantly going under the knife and getting the $30,000 facial procedure that Kris Jenner got. And I grew up depressed in my teens because I saw my mother being depressed. And I thought that's how you be, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then when they got older, my father started when, you get some financial stability and, they became rather well off, right, comparatively, because they're in Jacksonville. And he would buy her and ply her with designer labels and trips. And, I'd be somewhere having a crisis, as young people do, and they'd be in Honduras.
Mm-hmm.
And so as they got old, and she grew up in a sharecropping family. So things were everything to her,
Mm-hmm.
right? They defined a great part of her life. At the end of her life, when she started having strokes, I took care of my mom in the assisted living, in the rehab. One day, my dad was not coming to the hospital. He was making it about himself. He was complaining about everything that was going on with him. He was not letting her be the sick person. Well, he was coming to the hospital to visit her and he made a big to do about it. I was already there. She was like, sit me up in the bed and help me put on my eyeliner.
In the hospital or no, in the AL? Oh, wow.
Yes. And I did it because I'm a good daughter. But I just thought, what a brilliant and beautiful woman. And she gave her whole life to a man that could have cared less. And so I had a conversation with him toward the end of his life. I mean, I knew he gave up when she got sick. He didn't have anybody to make these elaborate meals and cook these teas.
Right.
And I remember one time her falling and him saying, yeah, you know, your mama, she ain't no more good to me. And that broke my heart. And I was asking him about the children and the women. And this is what he said. He always complained that because my mom wasn't educated, that she couldn't help him with the bills. And he would say things that we would hear over and over again, like, I'm a one-man band. You know, and he would tell this to people, and apparently he told this to this woman he was having an affair with. And the woman told him, well, I make, you know, 70K. This is in the 80s. You make 70K. We could, that 140,000 is good for down, right? It's a good, just so you can cover your bills.
Right.
And she said no. And I said, well, why didn't you go with her? You know, and he said, you know, because I loved your mama. I love your mama. And I didn't want to leave my church. Okay. All right. Well, he destroyed her. And so now I get up in the morning at 5 o'clock and I'll go to bed at 2 because my capacities are needs and I am going to use them to the fullest extent that my physical capacity, my intellectual capacities will allow. And I will do it for my mom.
All right, we got lots of folks on the phone, so let's talk to Jack in Dover. Hi, Jack.
Good morning. Hi. Good morning.
Good morning.
I've really enjoyed, listening to y'all share your stories and stuff. And I don't know if my story will help anybody, but
Were you a
worked
trad
at
wife?
Walmart well, kind of, yeah. I worked at Walmart with a lady. She had 3 grandchildren that she was taking care of because her daughter got, severely depressed and went into rehab and had to give up her children to the foster care system. So I'm just saying, to some of your listeners that I'm really proud of the way the foster care system works because once she went out and went through the application process, she was able to get her 3 grandchildren permission to live at her house, and then she got paid for each child. And they deposited money right into her bank account, and it really worked out well for her and her family. And then eventually her daughter did kind of come out of the loop. So, I know modern day times, if there's some woman out there struggling and she's getting depressed and she gets her medical marijuana card and things just don't get any better, she might want to, or he might want
I don't know
to
where we
consider-
are.
Yeah, well, how does this have to do with trad wives, Jack?
Well, because her son, he was kind of like a trad wife because he was living in the basement of his grandmother's house, and he helped, take care of 3 kids while, his grandmother worked with me at Walmart. So
Gotcha.
I guess I'm just kind of out there on a limb, but
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
right, Perdido.
But we appreciate you calling, though, Jack.
Yes, thank you, Jack.
yes.
All right.
Thank
Okay,
you.
you're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I'm
All right.
disoriented.
Yeah, I need more coffee after that. Let's
Okay.
see. But we love Jack because he calls in a lot.
He
So
does.
yeah.
But I lost that one. I didn't
Yeah.
get it.
Let's talk to Mel in Tampa. Hi, Mel.
Hi there. Hi.
How are you?
I'm pretty good. Hot.
Hot.
Very hot.
Yeah, we're all hot. Except not. Well, how hot is it in Dallas, Nadia?
We're going to
It is
hit over
hot.
100 today. It's
Oh,
hot.
okay. All right.
Mhm.
Okay. So, Mel, talk to us.
Hi. So I'm not a young person, and I don't know what a trad wife is.
Oh,
I was never married, and I didn't have kids.
okay.
So I just wanted to know what it is, and I love your show. First time caller.
Thank you.
And
So,
this is a great topic.
thanks. Trad wives, Donna mentioned at the
I got
start.
you.
Oh,
Run
yeah.
right in there.
Awesome.
Trad
Awesome.
wife is this is from my notes, okay? Is short for a traditional wife. It is a woman who embraces conventional gender roles. I don't even like that.
Oh, okay.
Typically centered around homemaking, motherhood, submission to her husband. Right, put a headstone on that one. Modesty and femininity. So there's like a lot of vintage inspired conservative values, that is right now. It used to be something that you found on the right, the far right. It is now making its way into pop culture, and it doesn't seem to have any limit, right, with young women, because they see it as the ultimate display or proof of being a feminine woman, which is now a thing.
Right.
Rejection of modern feminism. Oftentimes, the trad wives and the pick-me's, as they're also called, is women who want to do the right thing so that men notice them and choose them. Those women reject modern feminism as the cause of women's stress, burnout, and dissatisfaction. If you're frequently on social media, like a lot of young people are, you'll hear men say, "Oh, nobody's going to want." A woman will say, "Look at me, I'm getting my degree. You know, I've got my PhD in epidemiology today." And there will be men in the comments. They call them ashies on social media, and there
Oh
will
boy.
dusties and ashies, and that's a term for men who literally can't, make it, don't have women. It's like the black version of an incel, an involuntary celibate. It's a whole culture, as you can see, right?
Yeah.
And we start going down a rabbit hole, but I'll just keep going. Rejection of modern feminism, right? And then they say that if women would not do all of those things, this sounds very familiar, very Laura Ingalls Wilder. If women would not do those things, that era, not her, they wouldn't have all the stress and burnout. And then the aesthetic is hyper curated. So there's these romantic visuals of domestic bliss, apron sourdough starters, and it's rooted in the 1950s housewife ideals or even Victorian notions of true womanhood. Critics say that it glamorizes submission and erases decades of progress, and supporters often frame it as it's empowering and say it's about choosing traditional roles freely.
Yeah. Think like, the Duggars,
Oh
19,
my God.
20, 21, 22 kids and
Mm.
counting. Think of if that mom had been in her 20s, that's a trad wife.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, it sounds horrible, but
It does.
I mean,
Moment of silence for that.
my mom was like a 60s housewife. So, I mean, I was born in 65, and to be, I didn't do anything traditional.
Same. Yeah.
But she stayed home with us. I mean, I was really glad to have a parent home for 16 years. And then my father lost his corporate job, and he was doing pretty well. In like the 1980-ish, there's books and stuff about when there was age discrimination. Some guys sued their companies and all that stuff. But it didn't matter because he was already like 60 and he thought he would just get another job, and he couldn't find another job. So my mom had to go back to work, and then he never really went back to work. But anyway, so I think each generation of women find themselves kind of, I don't know if it's a conundrum, but it's a different experience of, like, what are we supposed to do when we grow up? Like, are we supposed to get a husband and get married and have kids? I mean, once upon a time, I thought that's what I was gonna do, but then I didn't. In my 20s, I was like, I don't know, I don't really care about that.
What do you think about these young women and how they're falling for this?
I think that's crazy.
Well,
And the
it's,
fact that
yeah.
it undoes, like the life's work of a Gloria Steinem type of person is just.
I think the thing that's missing, thank you for calling in. I think the thing that's missing about this conversation is no one is saying you have to go get 9 degrees and become this fiery Nobel laureate woman. You can choose to be a stay-at-home mom, right? You can be Megan Thee Stallion, you can be Kim Kardashian, you could be Michelle Obama, you could be Susan Sarandon, you could be Glenn Close, you could be my mama. You could choose whatever you want. The only thing that we're saying as feminists is that let us have a choice. Give us free.
Right. Let us choose.
Yeah.
That makes all right. I have a funny story.
Radical idea.
Really quickly.
Mhm.
I grew up in deep South Louisiana. Okay, and so when I'm in the 8th grade, going into the 9th grade, that's the first time we were going to be switching classes. So we had to make a little schedule, and everybody knew what was going on. So my choice for electives was home economics, or shop, agriculture,
Mhm.
or typing. And so I put typing, you know. So then my principal comes and hunts me down, and he's like, "Oh, baby," because you call everybody a baby in Louisiana. "Oh, baby, I see you didn't put home ec for your elective." And I'm like, "Nope." Nope. And he's like, "But all the girls take home ec." And I'm like, "Well, this girl is going to take typing because it's an elective, and I elect to take typing." Oh my God, that man did not know what he was in for. I mean, he thought, he was just come along and, what, did you think I was too stupid to pick home ec? I don't want to take home ec. No.
And now here you are.
And here I am. I was the first girl in the history of that school who did not take home ec.
That's
is
wild to me.
frightening. Yeah.
That's wild. What year was this?
Oh Lord, I'm gonna be dating myself. If
Well,
I
just
tell
give us
you
a
that.
general idea.
It was in the 70s.
Was it the Paleolithic or the Precambrian era?
It was Precambrian. It was in that was in the 70s.
Okay.
All right, so let's talk to Fez in Bradenton. Hey, Fez.
Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
I was in Walgreens this morning, and I went in to do blood work, and so I was waiting around in the back, and father of these two young teenage girls were back there, and I was just at that moment when they were having that question. She was, espousing trans wifism as I just want to grow up and clean toilets and take and make babies because that's fun.
Wow.
That was just,
I'm telling y'all,
That's-
it's everywhere.
That's something you learn by experience. Yeah.
I know.
Well,
I do some cooking, Like, what?
Well, thank you for calling in. We're kind of
Thanks
getting down
so
to
much,
the bottom of
Fez.
this thing.
Bye-bye. See?
I'm going to share a personal story, and I
Yes,
want to have it on
please.
air. And I don't think even the person I'm going to talk about, maybe she doesn't know this, or maybe she's thought about it, but
Okay.
I would like to tell a story real quickly of how actually it's Donna who saved me from the trap wife life. And I don't know even know if she knows this. Back in 2018, when I was living in Tampa, Donna gave me a job. All right. My husband was working at the time, but it didn't pay a lot, and I was in an abusive marriage. I had 5 kids who were all young, let's say middle school and under, at middle school, elementary school. My oldest was in middle school. And she helped me out and she gave me a job. And that job was enough to cover, basic expenses and rent and things like that. And that for the first time in a very long time, I felt economically sufficient. And I was like, oh, and I realized, when you work a job, I had skills and I got experience.
Bilingual?
Well, try now.
Mhm.
But I had managerial skills that I had learned. I got to work with Donna a lot and learn a lot from her. And that helps me kind of get a little motorboat in my behind to say like, hey, like, what am I even doing here? What is happening here? This is not a good place for me. I'm miserable. This person is not treating me well. This is abusive. This is actually, I tell my friends, I don't know, but I tell that like Liz and Donna taught me how to be a bad bee. Like, I don't know if I can say the real word online, but
You
you know
can,
what I mean?
yeah, because it's
They
not
were
one of
the
the
framework
yeah.
for me. I will never forget, never ever. And Donna, one time we were working with this guy and he was a real jerk, right? jerk. Just and he had talked to me like I was like his secretary, even though him and I were in, you know, similar positions in this company.
So you got 30
Um,
seconds.
Oh, and I said, and I just sat down in the corner and cried. And Donna was like, "Why are you crying?" And I was like, "Well, he was a jerk to me, and he told me this." And she's like, "Why don't you tell him to F off?" And I was like, it had never occurred to me
The
before then.
novelty.
Never. Never occurred to me that I could tell a man to F off, you know?
Yeah, and here we are.
And here
And
we
here
are.
we are.
I love you.
Thanks so much
love you
for
too.
listening. Thank you, Nadia, for joining us. We need to jump on out. Try to find our YouTube channel at Surly Voices, all one word. And you may or may not see a live stream there. So thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.